Today, the Matt Walsh Show, as an OnlyFans creator, claims to have slept with 1,000 men in a single day. A recent report suggests that nearly 1.5 million women in this country are currently selling their bodies on the platform. Prostitution is now, for the first time, a mainstream part of American culture. How do we change that? We'll discuss. Also, why aren't more Americans making the connection between climate change and the wildfires in California? That's the question CNN is asking. The obvious answer is, well, because there is no connection. A video goes viral of an Eagles fan verbally accosting a woman while the woman's fiancé sits by and records it. And a Hollywood actor who has had a long career in Hollywood and amassed millions of dollars says that his life story is a testament to the horrors of systemic racism. We'll talk about all that and more today on The Matt Walsh Show. Just a reminder, the Daily Wire will be live as DW goes to D.C. for the inauguration of Donald Trump. Watch live and join the fight at dailywire.com/subscribe. Are you looking to align your investments with your conservative values and take more control of your investment choices? Many investors don't realize that they can influence company policies such as DEI, CRT, and ESG by exercising shareholder proxy voting and by reducing their investments in companies that don't share their conservative values. Constitution Wealth helps clients make informed investment decisions that reflect their principles. Their team of investment professionals are passionate about helping you align your investments with your traditional values. Ready to learn more about how your investments can better match your principles? Visit constitutionwealth.com/Matt for a free consultation. That's constitutionwealth.com/Matt. Constitution Wealth is a registered investment advisor. Registration does not imply a certain level of skill or training. Before considering their services, you should carefully review Constitution Wealth disclosures at constitutionwealth.com to understand all material risks, conflicts of interest, and fees. All investing involves risk, including the risk of loss. This is a paid endorsement, and I am not a client of the firm. The online prostitution website OnlyFans has been in the news quite a lot recently. Last week, a prominent OnlyFans prostitute went viral for propositioning a Five Guys employee while he was on the clock at the burger restaurant. Fortunately, the young man kept his dignity and turned her down. And this week, the same predatory degenerate, I think we should treat these people like mass shooters and try not to use their names whenever possible, has now claimed that she set a world record by having sex with 1,000 men in a 24-hour period. Actually, it was 1,057. Far be it from me to deprive her of that extra 57 strands of gonorrhea she likely contracted. Here she is talking about her big accomplishment.
Yeah, big 1,000 was completely done. So it started off, I'll give you a bit of an overview. After to start with, it was just like the room was absolutely full. Then we did groups of 5, like one after the other of 5s. I wanted to give people more time, so then it went down to like one-on-ones, didn't it? So like one person would watch whilst I was with somebody, and then it would literally just be like a rotating circle like that.
Now, you often hear people, especially conservatives, say that they feel sorry for women like this. I have to admit that I don't. I reserve all my sympathy for whoever owns the Airbnb they used for this stunt. You'll have to go in there with hazmat suits to fumigate that room. Now, you may remember a few weeks ago the story of an OnlyFans prostitute who had sex with 100 men. And these are not the same people. So that woman also planned to jump in bed with 1,000 men. She was apparently beaten to the punch, though. So there's now kind of an arms race among cyber hookers to see who can have sex with the most men in a day. Eventually, someone's going to figure out a way to crack 1 million, which will be a pace of about 11 men a second. I don't see how that's physically possible right now, but somebody will figure it out. I mean, this insatiable quest for sexual self-debasement will be the primary driver of scientific and technological advancement in the future, I have no doubt. And needless to say, business over at OnlyFans is thriving. Back in the fall, it was reported that the website's revenue for the previous year had cracked $1.3 billion. And they're generating all of that money from the approximately 300 million fan accounts on the site. But of course, when we talk about fans, the fans are there for the hookers, or as OnlyFans refers to them, creators. Now, this euphemism makes no sense, of course, because these women are not creating anything. They're selling their bodies, that which has already been created by God Almighty, selling it to the lowest bidder. And they're profiting from their own degradation and humiliation. This is not an act of creation, but of destruction, self-destruction in this case. But whatever you call these women, how many are there? According to recent reports, there are currently about 1.4 million American women producing pornography for OnlyFans. 1.4 million. And the thing is, that number is undoubtedly a rather significant undercount, because it doesn't count all the women who created on OnlyFans in the past. It doesn't count the women who use other platforms to sell their bodies. All in all, it's impossible to know exactly how many women in this country have elected to become prostitutes. We only know that the number, whatever it is certainly well into the millions. This is truly an unprecedented circumstance. Prostitution itself is not new or unprecedented, obviously. It's the world's oldest profession, as the saying goes, and there's nothing necessarily new about having such a high percentage of women in a given population turning to prostitution to make a living. You could almost certainly find more per capita prostitutes in most third world countries than you find here, even with OnlyFans factored in. Historically, it's thought that something like 1 in 5 women in 18th century London were prostitutes, 20% of the female population. Now, there are a lot of OnlyFans creators, quote unquote, but there aren't that many, percentage-wise. So the sheer numbers do not reveal the full scope of this problem. As I tried to explain a few days ago, although prostitution has always been prevalent in basically all human societies in one form or another, it has almost always been the province of young, poor, desperate women. So in this country, historically, you would have to drive down to the sections of the city where these women congregated. That's because prostitution was not a part of polite mainstream society. It was kept out on the fringes, in the shadows, in the dank, dark places where normal people would never want to go. And that is what's changing now, and very rapidly. Suddenly, prostitution has become a career option or a way to earn extra spending cash for middle class and upper middle class women. The kinds of women who would never stand on a physical street corner now have the opportunity to sell their bodies on a virtual street corner, and a depressing, I would say even terrifying number of women have jumped at that chance. Some of them have even become multimillionaires in the process. That's another thing that separates old-fashioned prostitution from the newer variety. I mean, there are OnlyFans creators making $20 or $30 million a year. The highest paid star running backs in the NFL don't make that much, or even close to that much. Now, that's not to say that most of the hookers on OnlyFans are raking in millions. The sad reality is that the vast majority are debasing and dehumanizing themselves for the sake of a few $100 a month, at most. I mean, they could earn as much selling homemade candles on Etsy. They could earn significantly more if they went out and got real jobs. Instead, they choose to become masturbatory aids for random, unseen men. And in return, they make enough money to feed their Starbucks habit. And that's about it. It's hard to imagine something more pathetic than that. But even this does not fully capture the width and breadth of this crisis. It's not just that so many women are becoming prostitutes. It's not just that women who have many other options are choosing to be prostitutes anyway. It's that through platforms like OnlyFans, prostitution, or sex work, as it is euphemistically called, is now mainstream. It is a part of popular culture in a way that it never was before. It has been validated, accepted, and therefore elevated so that prostitution is not just a common practice, but a conventional one. The prostitution may be the oldest profession, but it was never considered a normal one until now. Now, this didn't happen out of the blue. The stage was set over the course of decades with the proliferation of internet pornography. Nearly all of the moral guardrails around sex were torn down and replaced with a flimsy, woefully insufficient, consent-based moral structure, which says that anything is permissible so long as both parties verbally agree to it. But, it turns out that just because both parties agree to something, that doesn't make the thing good or acceptable, nor does it mitigate the harm done by it. If you sacrifice your dignity while robbing someone else of theirs, it doesn't matter that you consented to it. A thing is not dignified merely because it was done on purpose with the willful acquiescence of all parties. Most of all, we have removed shame from society. At least we have removed it from the things that are actually shameful. Now, history shows that we can put an end to pretty much any type of conduct or drive it into the shadows and out of public view so that very few people engage in it simply by using shame. We stopped shaming whorish behavior, and so now we have soccer moms turning to prostitution for some extra spending money. One follows logically from the other. I mean, consider this. 50 years ago, around half of all adults in the country smoked cigarettes. Now that number is down to about 10%, which actually seems high because, like, you hardly ever see anyone smoking cigarettes anymore. How did that happen? Well, we cast cigarette smokers out to the edges of society. And this was accomplished largely through shame and social pressure. Our culture has relentlessly demonized cigarettes as disgusting, dangerous, low class, uncool. And as a result, cigarettes went from cool and mainstream to obnoxious and odious. It used to be that you could smoke cigarettes anywhere. Now cigarette smokers are given like an 8-foot wide box outside 100 feet from the entrance of any building. You see them huddling outside in the cold, pathetically, in their little box, smoking their cigarettes. Society is more welcoming of sex offenders now than cigarette smokers. Now, I happen to think that the anti-cigarette campaigns are quite overdone and hysterical. If I were to make a list of all the kinds of behaviors that I would want to treat that way, cigarette smoking wouldn't even be in the top 50, okay? My point is only that when a behavior is targeted and shamed, even an addictive one, you will end up with a lot less of it. And when it does happen, it will happen out of view, on the margins, where shameful things belong. So we can't get rid of prostitution entirely. It will always be one of the unsightly barnacles that sort of attaches itself to the hull of civilization. But that's what, if it's going to exist, that's what it should be, a slimy, crustaceous thing clinging to the outside of the ship below the waterline. Okay? Not sitting up on the deck, reclining on a beach chair in full view while the waitstaff serves it margaritas. This kind of behavior should be shamed, and that goes for the customers, the men, as well. Most people are not hesitant to call them out, nor should they be. And I guarantee that's going to be a reaction that even to what I'm saying right now, that a lot of people are going, well, you're focusing on the women. What about the men? I get it. We talk about the men all the time. Okay, the shaming of men who do disgusting things happens all the time. It's very popular to do. I don't think that there's a lack of that in the culture. But what no one really wants to do is turn around to the women who are doing these things and saying, what you are doing is disgusting. Because it also goes for the women who choose this lifestyle, who are now, by the way, like the dealers. Like they're now the drug dealers doling this stuff out. And they're not resorting to it out of desperation. They're not forced into it. They're just choosing it. And we should look at that choice with disgust and contempt. Not acceptance, not understanding. We should treat it with shame, which is also the primary reason why OnlyFans and all similar platforms should be outlawed. Prostitution is already illegal in most jurisdictions. It makes no logical sense that prostitution should be legal only if it's done with a camera and sold for a subscription. Doesn't make any sense. Why should the more accessible version of the thing be legal? If anything, it should be the other way around. Now, I prefer for both versions to be banned, but what I'm saying is that to only ban the version that a lot fewer people are engaging in makes no sense. Now, would banning it stop women from selling their bodies online? No, not entirely. It would go a long way towards ostracizing the behavior so that otherwise normal and financially comfortable people do not engage in it. Right now there is one side of the ideological divide that wants to actively normalize the most debased forms of human behavior. That's on the left. We know about that. But then the other side, which, though not seeking to normalize it, has largely lost the wherewithal and appropriate sense of moral indignation required to treat shameful things as shameful, which is why the conversation around OnlyFans so often centers on how much pity we should have for the prostitutes, how hard their lives must be, the deep sadness you can see in their poor little puppy dog eyes. There's almost no one stating plainly what used to be commonly understood, that this kind of conduct is disgusting and reprehensible, and we are revolted by it. Now, that message is harsh. It's impolite. It also happens to be true. It is honest. And if the recent history of our culture should have taught us anything, it's that it's better to be honest than polite. Now let's get to our 5 headlines. As we welcome a new year, it's time to focus on what matters most, creating healthier habits, enjoying more moments with family, and spending less money on going out to eat. GoodRanchers.com is here to help you turn all of your resolutions into solutions. When you buy your meat from Good Ranchers, you're directly supporting local farms and ranches in the U.S. and skipping the chaos and imported meat in the grocery store. Good Ranchers delivers high-quality, 100% American meat straight to your door, so you can start 2025 with better choices, better meals, and better moments at home while still enjoying steakhouse-quality meats. Best part, there are no antibiotics, hormones, or seed oils, so you can feel good about what you're fueling your body with. All their cuts are pre-trimmed, pre-portioned, individually packaged, and vacuum sealed, which makes meal prepping easy, even on the busiest days. Good Ranchers leaves you with less food waste and less wasted time. Remember to visit GoodRanchers.com and use my code Walsh to claim $25 off, free express shipping, and your choice of free ground beef, chicken, or salmon in every order for an entire year. If spending more time with family, spending less time on going out to eat, and enjoying quality, nutritious American food is on your resolution list this year, then be sure to visit GoodRanchers.com and use my code Walsh today for meat that delivers just that. GoodRanchers.com, American meat delivered. Okay, it's now Tuesday, so we're now officially less than a week left of the Biden regime. Less than a week away from the inauguration. I'll be flying. Well, actually, everyone at the Daily Wire, we're all flying into D.C. for the inauguration, and as we've told you, we're going to be broadcasting live at the inauguration, which will be a lot of fun. And I'll be there, for the inauguration, all the related festivities. I've got my schedule full right now with all kinds of social events from Saturday all the way to like Wednesday. Balls and galas and dinners. Now don't get me wrong. I'm honored to be attending all this stuff. I really am. I'll be at the inaugural ball on Monday night. Very, very honored that I can attend that. It's history. But it's also a lot for me. It's just a lot. My pace is usually like one social function a quarter. It's like every 3 or 4 months, maybe. And now I'll be going to like 3 or 4 a day, it seems like, for 4 days in a row. Now, luckily, I have my secret weapon, which is my wife. That's why I always recommend, you've heard me say before, I recommend if you're an introvert, marry somebody talkative. And it seems counterintuitive, but it isn't, because you need to have a pinch hitter, for kind of a pinch talker, I guess, for precisely these kinds of situations. And I just bring her with me. I could say hello to the people when they come up, exchange pleasantries, and then let my wife jump in and do all the talking. And I can just stand there. And it's fine. The only problem with the plan, well, there's 2 ways that this plan can go awry. And first is that I kind of have to keep my wife on task, because when we're at the social functions, she'll tend to start talking to somebody, and then that leads to talking to somebody else. And then like there's this chain of talking that takes her down, across the room, but I'm still standing here, and I'm surrounded by people over here, and she's just talking her way in the wrong direction. And now I'm stranded. I'm like Tom Hanks in Castaway calling to Wilson, as he floats away from me. Or I guess I'm Wilson in this relationship, because Tom Hanks was the talkative one. But and the other problem is that my wife doesn't know how to end it. Like, she's very good at conversations, except the end part. The ending it is the part where where she's, I'm good at ending conversations. I'm an expert at that. I'm very good. If you want someone to end a conversation, I'm your guy. Because to me, ending a conversation is just, all right, good talking to you, and just walk away. That's it. I don't need, you don't need to wind down. You don't need to, no, you don't need any kind of this. You don't need like the third act of the, of the film, and then it's over. And I'm walking away. My wife's wind down process for small talk is it's elaborate, and then sometimes we'll get to a point where the conversation it's over. I mean, where the other person is even going, well, once you hear that, well, once you hear that, that's you're out. And my wife will sometimes, even after the whelp, she'll say something new. She'll have a new thought that starts a whole new conversation, and I'm just sitting there like, oh my God, that was our out. We were free. We were free. So anyway, it can go wrong that way, but generally speaking, it'll be very good to have her there, and I am, despite everything I've just said, I am actually looking forward to it. Okay, so CNN wanted to take a look at how climate change is polling in the wake of the LA fires, which is an important question, right? This is what we need to know. What we really need to know is how are the fires affecting climate change's polling numbers, and let's find out.
Administrator Deanne Criswell talking about the role that climate change has in helping create the conditions for these wildfires burning out of control, the most destructive in some ways that we've ever seen in and around Los Angeles. So how do Americans feel about climate change and the danger it poses? Do they feel the same way that they used to? He knows the answer. CNN's senior data reporter Harry Etten is here.
Hey, John. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think Americans are making this connection. And the way we can see this in right here and now, take a look at the monthly change in Google searches. Look at the searches for wildfire, up 2,400%. My goodness gracious, this is the most amount of people searching for wildfires ever, going back since Google Trends began back in 2004. But look at climate change. Look at the change. It doesn't go hand in hand with wildfires. It's actually down. It's down 9%. And I also looked in California. There has been no increase in the number of searches for climate change. So the bottom line is this. Americans are definitely interested in learning about these wildfires. They're interested in following the news about the wildfires, but they are not making that connection with climate change. That's the bottom line here.
Okay, can I just say, and this is not really the most important point, but you don't need to circle the stuff on the screen. Okay, we can see it. It says 2,400%. We can see that. It's right there in big, bold letters. There's only two things on the screen. One of them is climate change and one of them is wildfires. So if you just say wildfires, it's right there. We can see it. You don't need to circle it. I know you have your fancy screen. All of these news outlets now, they all have the fancy screens that they used to only bring out for election night. They bring the screen up. They have the screen guy who stands by the screen and says, if you see these figures, look at these numbers here. And then they circle and they're doing all this fancy stuff. They used to only do that for election night. But I guess they figured, well, we got these fancy screens and we have our screen guy and we have to pay him. Now he's on salary. And so now they just use these guys for everything. When we don't need to draw a diagram to explain what you're trying to tell us. So play with your Etch-a-Sketch some other time, is all I'm saying. Also, do you know why people in LA aren't Googling climate change? Do you know why? Because he just said, well, people in California aren't even Googling climate change. You know why? Because their houses are on fire, okay? That's why. What do you want them to do? Their houses are on fire. You want to pop onto the desktop and go check to see if, whether this predicament was caused by an over-reliance on fossil fuels? I mean, is that what you want from these people? Also, Americans are not making the connection between climate change and wildfires because there is no connection. Okay, because Americans are actually not stupid, by and large, and can understand that wildfires have always happened, first of all. Second, many of these fires probably started by people, okay? And third, driven by wind. And wind has always existed as long as we've had an atmosphere. And so people understand that. And also, and this is the thing that's the hardest for the folks at CNN and on the left generally to accept and understand, but nobody cares about climate change. That's what it comes down to. No one actually cares. Nobody cares. You've been trying for decades to get people to care, and no one actually cares. We're all just bored to death by it. As soon as the term climate change is said, we're all bored. Right now, you are bored listening to me talk about it. As soon as I said climate change, everyone is tuned out. You don't care anymore. And I'm very much aware of that. And yet I'm continuing to talk about it. So maybe I'll just move on. All right. Breitbart has this. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass has taken criticism for being in Africa at the beginning of the destructive wildfire, something she had previously pledged to avoid. As Breitbart News reported last week, Bass had been visiting Ghana in Africa at the time of the wildfires, despite having over 24 hours notice ahead of what experts predicted would be the worst windstorm to hit Los Angeles since 2011. Now, Bass had already spent a lot of time in Africa when she was in Congress, but apparently she had made a pledge. Despite her misgivings, Bass said she would not travel internationally. She said, quote, this is before, this was a couple of years ago she said this. Not only would I, of course, live here, but I also would not travel internationally. The only places I would go would be D.C., Sacramento, San Francisco, and New York in relation to L.A. But turns out that she went to Ghana. Now we got Zach Seidel, the mayor's spokesman, said that Bass's pledge may have been one of miscommunication. Seidel said, in light of the Olympics coming, that the city owns and operates the nation's largest international trade hub, and that a third of Angelenos were born abroad, this was, of course, a miscommunication. Mayors of Los Angeles routinely travel internationally. Oh, so it's just miscommunication, that's all. She said one thing and did the exact opposite of what she said she would do. Just a miscommunication. That's all it is. Because when she said that she would not travel internationally, what she meant to say was that she would travel internationally. So she meant to say exactly the opposite of the thing that she said. Yeah, that's it. So she's not a godforsaken, shameless liar. She might look like it, but she's not. You should believe her on this. I mean, it's not like this is someone who often says the opposite of what she actually means. And this should be an easy pledge to fulfill, by the way, because there's no reason why the chief executive of a city should ever be traveling internationally, least of all to Ghana, of all places. Really, you should not be leaving the country at all for any reason. There's not anything going on in another country that could possibly have anything to do with your job as the mayor of an American city. And you're actually needed on the ground when disaster strikes. You have a role to play. You have a rather big role to play. Of course, but Ted Cruz, and this comparison is made all the time, that Ted Cruz caught way more flack from the national media when he infamously went on vacation to Cancun while Texas was dealing with a natural disaster. I think, what was it, a winter storm, back a few years ago in 2021, I think, and that was a big, big scandal. But that was actually far, far more justifiable. It was bad optics, bad politics, but the fact is that a U.S. senator really doesn't have much of an immediate role to play in the wake of a natural disaster in his state. There's not much for Ted Cruz to be doing about a bad storm in the moment. I mean, he's a senator. He's not in charge of directing agencies that respond to the disasters. He has no day-to-day practical role to play. Still bad optics, like I said, but functionally speaking, there's actually no reason why Ted Cruz needs to stick around in Texas while it's dealing with a natural disaster. There is a reason why a mayor of a city needs to be there, physically there, when her city is on fire. Now, naturally, though, these criticisms that are being levied at Karen Bass are all invalid, and they are invalid because Karen Bass is a black woman which was the message a couple days ago from Hollywood actresses Yvette Nicole Brown and Kim Whitley over the weekend. I've never heard of either of them, but they were interviewed by TMZ, it looks like, and here's what they said.
She's got a spine of steel.
Yes.
And she's also been a black woman in America a very long time, so none of this is new to her. We're mad because we're tired of it.
We're
tired
mad for her.
We're mad for her, and we're going to stand. Listen, I don't know how you're here, but I'm happy you're here. Because somebody needs to
stand, behind her and support her. Because how is she handling it? You can see it in her face. She stays calm. But think about this. She has the city to take care of. She does not have time to hear from these reporters.
And she is also not mayor of every municipality in California.
Yes.
There are people that are mad that she didn't fix the fires in Malibu. She's not the mayor of Malibu.
You're right.
What is she supposed to do in a city she's not the mayor of?
People don't understand.
And let me say this too. I could imagine how much it would hurt to see this happening in the city that she loves. That's first. So take away how it feels for people to attack her. She's heartbroken because this is happening in her city, a city that she loves. And
the people don't understand. They don't understand how large it is, because a lot of people are sitting in other parts of the city. They're not in it. They're not in the fire. They're not in the smoke. They don't see. They're not there. They're watching TV. Why? And they want to blame someone. This is not the time to blame. It's time to get some resources. She has reached out far. We have planes coming in from other countries to help us. This is not the time. I need everybody to remain calm,
they need to leave her alone and let her do her work. Just let her do
support
her work.
the leadership,
Let her
support
do
Karen
her
Bass.
work.
That's all I can say. You cannot. This not the time.
It's time.
Oh, y'all done got me
She's
upset.
had a great response so far to the fires.
Absolutely.
A great. She has done what she's had to do. She's jumped in there, and she's
And
got.
let me say this: we have fires every year, and I don't remember in the 30 years almost that I've lived in LA, I've never seen everybody react like this to the mayor and blame one person for a natural disaster.
Yes.
I've never seen it. Now, what's different this time? Interesting, isn't it?
You said that. Amen, sister.
Interesting, isn't it? What's different this time? What's different? Well, the city's burning down. I mean, that's one thing that's different, Yvette. I think that one is Yvette. I don't know. Also, they didn't have water to put out the fires. Also, the mayor was 7,000 miles away when it happened. So those are a few things that are different. But sure, people aren't actually mad that the city's on fire. They're mad because Karen Bass is a black woman. That's it. If she was a white man, everybody would be thanking her for letting the city burn. They would just accept it as a reality, and they would say it's probably for the best. They would say, to me, it's a bummer that my whole neighborhood has been burned to the ground. But look, the mayor's a white man. I'm sure it's for the best. I'm sure it's fine. That's what they would say. That's what everybody would say. But it's a black woman, so only black women. Only black women. This is what it's like to be a black woman in America. Only black women in America. Only if you're a black woman in America are people mad at you when you allow their neighborhood to be set on fire. Only if you're a black woman. All right, here's an interesting case. Many angles to explore, I think. So there's a lot of outrage online over a viral video of an altercation between an Eagles fan at the Eagles game on Sunday and two Packers fans who showed up to the Eagles game at Eagle Stadium in full Packer regalia. And so the Packers fans are a guy named Alexander Bassar, who posted the video we're about to watch. He took it and posted it. And also his fiancé. So let's, it's a little difficult to hear the audio, but let's go ahead and play the video and then we'll talk about it.
After reviewing the play, the runner was short of the goal line. They got one more yard though. They're close. Yeah, but they're not in. It's not a touchdown. Yeah. So you don't. Okay, well, don't call her. Don't. She's an ugly dog. Cool. Into the third quarter.
Okay, so a bit hard to hear. The Eagles fan, this middle-aged man, calls the woman a dumb C word. And the woman's fiancé, Alexander, tells the man not to say that, to which the man responds that his fiancé is an ugly, dumb C word. And then Alexander says, cool. And that's the end of the interaction that, we see here. So like I said, very viral video, a lot of outrage at the Eagles fan. The Eagles organization has responded. They banned this guy for life. They've apologized to the woman. Also, the Eagles fan has been doxxed, and his employer has been, has been notified, and he's probably going to be fired. So all that has happened because people are very upset at the Eagles fan, which is understandable. I mean, his conduct is reprehensible. I do think it's a little bit more complicated than that, or at least there's more to say than just that, in my opinion. So let's go through a few points about this. First, yes, to reiterate, the Eagles fan is a stupid, pathetic, trashy goon, no question about it. And no offense to the good people of Philadelphia, but he's not the only Eagles fan who falls into that category. Okay, so yes, the Eagles fan is a drunk, trashy idiot, but it's a little bit redundant to say that an Eagles fan is a drunk, trashy idiot. And again, no offense, but if you're an Eagles fan, Eagles fans have earned a reputation, and they have really earned it. So if you don't like the reputation you have, well, you earned it. What can I tell you? What I mean is that the behavior you see in the video is not at all unusual at an Eagles game. And it's pitiful. I'm a diehard Ravens fan, as you know. I'm a big football fan. I'll be the first to say that it is a sign of a severe character defect and a sort of pathological inability to grow and mature if you are too obsessed with your favorite sports team and too emotionally invested to the point where you're actually getting angry at someone who's wearing a jersey from another team, okay? As a Ravens fan, the rivalries with the Steelers, and so I'm not going to get angry at someone if they wear a Steelers jersey. You might joke around with them or something. My brother-in-law is a big Steelers fan, so you go back and forth as a joke, but I'm not actually getting mad at someone. I can't even imagine that. I can't even imagine getting actually angry because somebody is wearing the colors of another team that is not my favorite team. It's just, I hesitate to call it childish only because that's sort of an understatement. The behavior you saw in that video was worse than childish, but it is also really childish, and you need to grow the hell up. It's okay to watch football as a grown man. I certainly watch it, but it is just asinine to make it a central aspect of your identity. Not to mention, of course, speaking this way to anyone, but especially a woman, is repugnant. However, point two, the supposed victims in this altercation are not actually totally innocent. For one thing, and it always surprises me. I mean, it shouldn't surprise me, but it actually doesn't surprise me. But it frustrates me that this happens time and time again, and hardly anyone ever brings this up. We don't know what happened prior to the video being taken. Okay, there's a reason why the guy pulled out the video when he pulled it out. We have no idea what transpired ahead of this. Okay, so for all we know, that woman was cussing the guy out a few minutes before the video was taken. For all we know, that not only could that be the case, but it's kind of likely that it's the case. I'm not saying that it happened. I have no clue. That's my point. I don't know, but it could have, right? And if it did, or if there was any deliberate antagonizing going on, then suddenly the Packers fans are much less sympathetic. It still would not justify the behavior of the Eagles fan, but let's just, hypothetically, if 5 minutes before that, the woman had turned to that Eagles fan and cussed him out and called him stupid, a stupid, dumb hick or something, is she still a sympathetic figure in this? Of course not. Again, wouldn't justify what the guy said. I would never talk that way to a woman, but just the fact that no one's even curious about that, no one's even curious what happened before this. And no one ever is. Anytime there's a viral video, it picks up. These viral videos always pick up in the middle of some kind of altercation. There's a reason why. That guy who was taking the video, he was not, I assume, taking that video the entire game. So this happens in the middle. And so you have to wonder what happened before the middle. What I do know, and yes, go ahead and call this victim blaming. Go ahead and call it victim blaming. I don't care. You are a moron if you go to a game at Eagle Stadium wearing the jersey of the opposing team. You are literally asking for something like this to happen. And bringing your fiancé or your wife to a game at Eagle Stadium wearing the opponent's colors is beyond foolish. Why would you do that? I would never do that. Okay? Now, that doesn't mean the Eagles fan is justified in accosting you. It doesn't mean that they should respond that way, right? It just means that they will. Something like this will happen. It shouldn't, but it will. So why would you put yourself in that position? If you leave your car unlocked with the keys inside when you're parked on a city street at night, it's going to get stolen. It shouldn't. The thief is not justified in taking your car. The thief should still be tracked down and thrown in prison. But it will happen, right? And so when you come and cry to me, my car was stolen. I left it unlocked with the keys in it on a street corner in the middle of the night. My car was stolen. I have no sympathy for you. I just don't. Well, how could I? It was so easy for that to not happen to you. Finally, point 3, and I have to say this, and I don't say it lightly, but as a man, if another man talks to your woman that way, you can't just stand by and let it happen. You can't. You just can't. Recording it and posting about the guy later is not good enough. In fact, it's worse because now your emasculation and your fiance's humiliation has been immortalized. It's amazing to me that this guy called your fiancé a dumb, ugly C word to your face. Your response was cool, and you put that online for the world to see? What? You have provided video evidence to the world of your shame, of your own failure to man up and take care of the situation like a man should. Now, I'm fully aware, okay, if you throw down in that situation, you might go to jail. You might end up in the hospital. You might go to the hospital and then jail. Something worse could potentially happen. I know that. But unfortunately, you have found yourself in a position, you have put yourself in a position where even the hospital and jail are, though terrible outcomes, preferable to the alternative. The alternative is that you are castrated in front of your woman and you lose your honor and your dignity, and she loses all respect for you forever, just as you lose respect for yourself. That's the alternative. And yeah, jail will be better. You know, I mean, I'm telling you, like, that relationship is over. I'll tell you right now, it is over. Because that woman is never going to forget that. Never. I don't care what anyone says, no, it's the right thing to do. Okay? You're full of it and you know it. And any woman who says that, no, that's what I'd want, that's how I want my husband to respond. No, you wouldn't. No, you would not. If a man called you a dumb, ugly C words, you would not want your husband to say, cool, and then nothing. No, you would not. Don't lie, okay? Let's not lie. Now, I know there are men who will say, be the bigger man here, it's not worth it. Fine, but you and I both know, if you're in that situation and you let that man call your wife a dumb, ugly C word right in front of you, it'll haunt you forever. You will spend the rest of your life trying to rationalize and justify it to yourself, no matter what you say. Sticks and stones may break my bones, all the nursery rhymes, doesn't matter. You and I know that you will not be able to convince yourself that your failure to act was actually the right call, or that it was motivated by anything other than pure cowardice. Because the thing is, when people say, oh, be the bigger man, that's not why you're backing away. You're backing away because you're scared. And failing to act because you're afraid of the consequences is like the definition of cowardice. And as I said, your wife and your fiancé is never going to forget it. Never going to forget it. You know, so all that to say, am I suggesting that you should risk jail or serious injury just to protect your honor and your dignity, and more importantly, the honor of your wife or your fiancé? Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. And there was a time in this country when that would not even be controversial. Like, of course, your honor and your wife's honor, your fiancé's honor, that's worth something. It's not nothing. And I mean, there was a time when people fought duels for this exact reason. They risked getting shot. I mean, they volunteered to have another man shoot a pistol at them from 50 yards away, or 50 feet away, not 50 yards. You know, for the sake of their honor and their family's honor. I'm not saying that you should challenge them to a duel. You know, I do think that bringing duels back would actually make a lot of things better in society, but you know, I'm not suggesting that. And I'm not even saying you necessarily have to end up getting into a fight, but you got to get in the guy's face and get him to back down and apologize. You know, and if he does, then you can probably just, because he apologized. Now he has backed away, humiliated himself, he has submitted, surrendered, apologized, and you can probably leave it at that. But that is just, I mean, the idea that we should never risk our physical well-being for the sake of honor is a very new, very modern idea. And that's the way people look at it now. It's like your honor as a man is never worth any kind of physical danger. And that's the way people look at it. It's a very modern way of looking at it. I don't think it's correct. And most importantly, I don't think that the people who look at it that way are actually convinced. You know, I don't think they're actually convinced. I think this guy's gonna be haunted by that forever. And I think that, as I said, their relationship's basically over. Check back in 10 years. I don't think that they're married. It can't survive. It cannot survive. Because that's all she's gonna see when she looks at you. You know, it's just the way it is. All right, let's get to the comment section.
If you're a man, it's required that you grow a beard. Hey, we're the sweet baby gang.
Let's see. They're not ending DEI, they're renaming it. Anti-whiteism isn't just going to go away. The culture war is far from over. We cannot give up now that we're just starting to push back. Totally agree. In fact, I've been making that point about DEI being renamed for many months now. Culture war is not over. At the same time, we should recognize our victories when they happen. I think that's also important. And we've achieved a very real victory over what we call wokeness. And I think that acknowledging that is important. I was engaged my senior year of Christian college to my now wife when she was 19. This guy's 22, he says. One of my friends told me to keep that quiet because I wouldn't want anyone to know that I'm marrying a teenager. It's insane what my generation thinks about marriage. She's now 21 and pregnant with our first, and the weird looks just keep coming. Weird looks? Really? So she's 21 and you're 24 and you get weird looks because of that? I mean, that's crazy, obviously. There's nothing strange. I mean, I think as a general rule, you know, if you're both at an age as adults where you could have gone to college at the same time or high school at the same time, you know, years ago, then that puts you in the same kind of general age bracket. And not only is the age gap not a problem when you're both adults, but it's effectively meaningless. Like the age gap, you know, you said you met you were 22, she's 19. The age gap is, it's like, it's not even, it's meaningless. Because there is no massive difference in terms of maturity and life experience between a 22-year-old and a 19-year-old, okay? When you're 22, you're not looking back to when you were 19 and saying, oh man, when I was young and dumb. Remember those days? I'm so different now. I mean, you might be saying that, but everyone else who's older is looking at you like, no, you're literally the same person. You didn't grow up that quickly. Now, you know, I think there's a difference between, say, a 40-year-old and like a 23-year-old when you hear about those kinds of relationships. That's not to say that a 40-year-old with a 23-year-old is a sex predator or a pedophile, as people today say, which is clearly insane when both parties are adults. But the difference in life experience and just sort of general wisdom and maturity is such that, if I was single, God forbid, I would not be able to date somebody with that kind of age gap. I couldn't relate to them. We'd have nothing to talk about at all. But here you're talking about, again, I mean, it's age gap is not meaningful. Let's see. My ex was absolutely insane. I work at a grocery store, and some nights when I got off work, she would ask me to get her something to eat, but didn't know what she wanted. That was a puzzle. Some nights she asked for a specific food. That was a mission. Guess which one annoyed me? I get it. I mean, that is the difference. That is when men can get frustrated, as we talked about yesterday, that men like going on missions, with a clear purpose in mind, go to achieve something. That's what gets men. That's what motivates men. But this kind of vagueness, we got to crack the code, especially in terms of relationship, gets frustrating. I will say though that in this particular example, like, it's not always annoying, or at least it shouldn't be. And in this particular example, this should not annoy you in a relationship, because women never know what they want to eat. It's a stereotype. It's also true. I don't find it annoying. I mean, if we're going to a restaurant or getting takeout, me and my wife, we're at the point where usually I don't even ask my wife where she wants to go, especially if we're going out to eat. If we're going out to a restaurant, I never ask her, oh, where do you want to go? I don't even bother. I make the reservation. I know what kinds of places she likes. And so I make the reservation. I tell her the time that we're going to go. And that's it. And usually she'll find out where we're going. I mean, if she asks me, I'll tell her, but she'll find out when we get there. And if we're doing takeout, I may ask her what kind of food she's feeling, but often she won't have any specific idea. So I'll just pick a place and I'll order for her. I know what kind of food she likes. And so there are times like that where the woman in the relationship she's not like giving you a puzzle to solve and being annoying on purpose. It's more just, she just wants you to take the lead. She actually wants you to take the lead and be a leader in that. And it may seem like a small, it's a small thing, picking food or picking a restaurant to go to, but that is an occasion where oftentimes the woman just wants you to take care of it, just wants you to do it. Let's see. Ask my boyfriend to pick up a carton of eggs so I can make dinner, and he complains and continues playing Valorant, and then finally does it 3 hours later. So why are you guys together? Why haven't you broken up? I mean, it sounds like you're playing house with your boyfriend from the sound of it. Like, he's at the house, you're making dinner. I mean, it's possible you're not living together. I'm going to assume that you're living together just based on how you presented that. So you're living together, pretending to be married, and you perceive him, I guess, as a lump on a log who doesn't want to help or do anything, which maybe he is. Or maybe if I asked him, he'd have a different view. Okay, maybe if I asked it, he would say, I'm out doing things all the time. I'm constantly running errands. I'm constantly doing this. I work a hard job. She gets mad if she sees me relaxing for even 30 minutes. Meanwhile, she's not doing anything. Like, he might tell me that if I were to ask him, but I can't. So I'm only getting your version of events. It doesn't even matter, because this is how you perceive him. You perceive him, it sounds like, as just this lump on a log who doesn't do anything. So what? Why are you together? This boggles my mind when I hear this from people. You're not married. You're not even engaged. So what? Why? Just break up. That's the solution. Okay. If you're dating and you have an issue like, hey, what do I do about this? That my boyfriend, I can't get him motivated. He doesn't break up. That's a solution. Like, we don't need to talk about it. Just, that's it. Problem solved. Break up. If you're already talking about someone like this, okay, if you're coming across like you've been married for 40 years and you're just fed up, and you're not even married though, but you're already just like sick of this person, probably because you've been playing house for years and pretending to be married when you're not, well, then just break up. So that's my advice. You voted big government out and efficient government in. Well, now it's time to trim the fat from big wireless. If you're still on Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile, why? Pure Talk, my cell phone company, gives you the exact same service on the exact same towers with better customer service because they're based right here in the U.S., all for half the cost. That's right, there's simply no need to spend $85 or $100 per person on your wireless bill. Now you can get unlimited talk, text, and 15 gigs of data with mobile hotspot for just $35 a month. Friends, the average family of 4 saves about $1,000 a year with Pure Talk while enjoying America's most dependable 5G network. So cut the fat out of your wireless bill. Switch to Pure Talk by going to puretalk.com/Walsh. Again, that's puretalk.com/Walsh. You'll save an additional 50% off your first month with Pure Talk, America's wireless company. History is about to be made, and the Daily Wire will be live from D.C. to bring you every moment as Donald J. Trump is sworn in as the 47th President of the United States. This is not just an event, it's a movement, and we're making sure that you're front and center for all of it. To celebrate, we're giving you 25% off new Daily Wire Plus annual memberships. With your membership, you'll get exclusive access to our ad-free, uncensored shows, plus a growing library of hit movies, original series, and groundbreaking documentaries that are reshaping culture. Join the fight today. Use code DW25 at dailywire.com/subscribe for 25% off. Normally, we don't cover stories of great human tragedy for the Daily Cancellation. It's supposed to be a lighter segment to kind of end the show, not intended to bring the audience to tears. It's not supposed to make you ask how the universe can possibly be so brutal and so unfair to the most innocent among us. But today's segment will be an exception. I have no choice, really. The moment I heard the story of actor Digimon Hansu, I knew I had to cover it. And the way things worked out, I had to cover it at the very end of the show after I've talked about a bunch of other things that might seem to be a lot more important. But the truth is, nothing I've discussed on this show today or even in the past year is as important as the unimaginable cruelty that Digimon has experienced in this country. The 60-year-old actor recently described his lived experience on a CNN show called African Voices, which is the kind of original programming that's helped the network attract massive new audiences and break ratings records. I mean, people cannot get enough of African voices. But CNN's unprecedented success is not the point right now. The real point are Digimon Hansu's problems. And he's got a lot of problems. Let's listen.
How has Hollywood changed in terms of African representation in what you see since you started out to what's being produced now?
Yes, quite a bit has changed. I must say, because of course, when I came out with Amassed, I was nominated for a Golden Globe, but they ignored me for the Oscars, talking about the fact that they thought that I had just came off the boat and off the streets, where Steven Spielberg, used me for this film, and even though I successfully did that, they just didn't feel like I was an actor for whom we should pay any respect to. So this conceptual idea of diversity and all that, it still has a long way to go. Systemic racism don't change like that anytime soon. I mean, I'm still struggling trying to make a living.
I will say that the pain of being snubbed by the Oscars is one that I understand. I have also been persecuted in this way. So me and Digimon have that in common. We have maybe many other things in common. I don't know, but this is something. So this is a club that we both are a part of. But you'll notice that the anchor begins by asking him a question about African representation in Hollywood. He's looking for Digimon to offer some perspective about how things have changed over time in the decades that he's been working in the industry. But instead of answering the question, he immediately starts talking about himself. And very quickly, he reveals that he's still bitter about an Oscar snub for a movie that came out 28 years ago. He says that Steven Spielberg used him for the film and that the industry didn't show him respect because of systemic racism. The systemic racism was bad enough to affect the Oscars, but not the Golden Globes, apparently. And now, in part because of this snub from 3 decades ago, he's supposedly struggling financially as a result. That's how racist Hollywood is. That's how much of a victim Digimon is. Now, put aside the fact that this guy wouldn't have gotten any job in Amassed at all if he weren't black. That's beside the point. Just to be clear about the Oscar-worthy performance we're talking about here, this is, just to show if you haven't seen the movie, this is Digimon's big moment in Amistad.
Give us free. Give us free. Give us free.
Your Honor, please instruct the defendant that he cannot disrupt these proceedings with such
Give us free!
Yeah, Steven Spielberg, I mean, obviously a great, legendary filmmaker, not known often for his filmmaking subtlety, on the other hand. And in the business, this is what's known as Oscar bait. They're daring the Academy not to like this, because if they don't like it, then they must be racist. They must be on the side of the slave owners if they won't give this an Academy Award. But apparently the Academy didn't take the bait on this occasion, which I admit is a bit surprising. Usually when someone portrays a slave in a film, they're guaranteed to win every award they're eligible for. Federal law requires it, I thought. But in Digimon's case, the law was violated, which is racist. And according to him, if you don't think that that's world-class acting, then you hate black people. You're part of systemic racism. And this systemic racism apparently is the reason that he cannot pay his bills. Watch.
I've been in this business and making films now over 2 decades, and still, with 2 Oscar nominations, been in many big blockbuster films, and yet I'm still struggling financially to make a living. I'm definitely underpaid.
Growing up, you're one of the first big black actors I saw in big budget films, so it's mind-boggling to me.
But that's a sign for you that systemic racism is not something that you can deal with lightly. It's so deep inserted in so many things that we do across the board, and you don't overcome it. You just have to you have to cope with it and survive the best way you can.
Apparently I'm pronouncing his name wrong. Is it Digimon? Digimon Hansu?
Yeah, it's Digimon.
Okay, I just Googled it. I just Googled it.
I like Digimon better, though.
Digimon Hansu.
Okay, yeah, I Googled it.
Digimon Hansu.
Digimon Hansu.
Digimon Hansu.
Okay, anyway, so as you could tell, the entire interview keeps going back to Digimon, and he's only capable of talking about himself and blaming his financial difficulties on racists. But if you do any amount of research into this guy, you find out very quickly that his financial difficulties, if he's having them, are definitely his own fault. And it's not even close. According to the New Haven Register and Realtor.com, just 5 years ago, Hansu bought a $2 million, 4-bedroom, 4-bathroom home in the Trenda Playa Vista neighborhood of Los Angeles. Apparently, by the way, just minutes away from the high-end boutiques and restaurants in the area. And from the images they post online, it's a nice-looking house with a lot of interior space to work with. So it stands to reason that this actor, as you'd expect, was making quite a bit of money from appearing in all those films over the years, including Guardians of the Galaxy, Aquaman, Captain Marvel, Blood Diamond, Gladiator, How to Train Your Dragon 2, Charlie's Angels, both Rebel Moon's films, and so on. He wasn't doing any of that for free. He amassed enough money to buy a $2 million home, which the vast majority of Americans cannot afford and will never be able to afford. And obviously, pretty much no one in West Africa is able to afford it either, where this actor is from. No one in West Africa could even dream of the life that this man is living. So already we can conclude that if Digimon is having financial difficulties, it's because he's overspending. And instead of blaming himself for that predicament, he's blaming white people. Clearly thinks he's entitled to even more wealth because of his skin color. And when that doesn't happen, he concludes that everybody else is racist. As for this particular home in Playa Vista in 2023, a couple of years after buying it, Hansu announced that he was allowing people to rent the property for nearly $12,000 a month. So either reality set in pretty quickly, he realized he couldn't afford the payments, or he decided to make a quick $12,000 a month on his investment while he lived elsewhere. Either way, truly, this is a tragic case we're dealing with here. This poor man is worth only 7 figures. What I read online is he's worth $4 million. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but worth 7 figures rather than 8 or 9. And as a result, he had to rent out his $2 million mansion in Playa Vista. Can you imagine? I mean, There are people throughout the world who suffered, millions have endured torture and enslavement and mass starvation. And those are sad situations, but they certainly pale in comparison to a Hollywood actor who has only managed to accumulate millions of dollars in lavish real estate instead of hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, of course, the reason that this guy isn't paid like Tom Cruise or Leonardo DiCaprio is that every human on the planet knows the names Tom Cruise and Leonardo DiCaprio. No humans outside of Djimon Hansu's immediate family know his name or can pronounce it. He's a somewhat recognizable character actor who has never really been the lead in anything. And so what that means is that no one is going to the theater to watch the new Djimon Hansu project. Okay, like if someone goes to a movie and sees the movie and they say you like it, and then you say, well, who was in it? And they go, oh, Djimon Hansu's in it. They're not going to go, oh, Djimon Hansu's in that one? I got to see that. Djimon Hansu. I'm in. No one has ever said that in the history. No one. It's never happened. So, people go to the theater to watch a Marvel movie, and then when he appears on the screen, they turn to the person sitting next to them and they go, hey, isn't he the guy from Gladiator? And the other person says, no, I think he was in Blood Diamond. And the other guy says, they're not the same. Just because they're black doesn't mean they're the same person. And the other guy says, no, they're literally the same person in this case. And then the other guy says, okay, fine. And that's the end of it. I mean, that's the end of the conversation. In other words, he's not a box office draw, to put it mildly. And that's what separates the people in Hollywood who become uber rich from the ones who become regular rich. If you can draw people to the theater just to see your performance, you'll get to buy a $20 million house. If you can perform capably but not remarkably in a film that people would watch whether you were in it or not, you'll be stuck with your pitiful little $2 million house. You'll be relegated to a life that, while not as luxurious as the one Tom Hanks lives, still makes you far more comfortable than 99.99999% of people who've ever lived on the planet. And that should be reason for gratitude. Instead, Djimon Hansu can only complain. And that is why Djimon Hansu, who blames white supremacy because he somehow can't manage his 7-figure net worth, is today canceled. That'll do it for the show today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Talk to you tomorrow. Have a great day. Godspeed.
Today on The Ben Shapiro Show, hearings begin on Donald Trump's cabinet nominees. The media reshape themselves for a second Trump era, and Joe Biden gives himself a bizarrely positive retrospective. That's today on The Ben Shapiro Show. Give it a listen.